welcome to another edition of Crime Time with Dutyron and Ed Wallace. We are two retired New York City police detectives with 20 plus years. That's a total of over 40 with Ed because he hung around a little longer than I did. But I just want to say thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and everybody who positively engages with myself and this guy right over here, Ed Wallace. We appreciate you. We thank you. I know. I got you, Ed. There he is. He's in a secret location. He can't even tell you where he is right now. So, Ed, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know we're going to be talking about Trezell and Jacqueline West in the lockup, in the pokey, as they say it.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you see
in the big house?
Yeah, in the big house. Did you see the attorneys give their press conference yesterday? Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it was a waste of time. I knew what they were going to do from the get-go was declare innocence and innocent until proven guilty, and the grand jury is not the same as a trial, and blah blah blah. Right. It was the same old, same old.
And I think between you and I and probably 50,000 other people or 100,000 other people, we were all scratching our head about the Spanish interpretation and the way she was speaking. I don't speak Spanish, so I don't understand it. But from what I heard from some friends of ours, she was speaking pretty bad Spanish. So that was pretty interesting. Tonight, we have our two guests from Tier Talk podcast, Anthony and Connie. You guys know them very well. Connie is co-host with Anthony. I think she runs the show over there, to be honest with you. I think Anthony really just follows Connie's lead, but I'm going to leave it at that because I want them to keep coming back. I love them both. They're a wealth of information in the professional correctional side. They give their perspective, and they are like, for me, they're a tremendous asset to Crime Time with Dutyron and anybody who goes over and follows their YouTube channel and their podcast and everything that they do. Connie hosts a lot of other different, she does a lot of other different things, and we'll get into that towards the end of this show. But before we get started, I want to just say thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all the folks who positively engage. You guys are what makes this a great place. And Ed and I are so appreciative of you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know I can't say it enough. Right, Ed?
I agree, 100%.
Arizona Street Media says, I love your live streams, my friend, and it's Pepsi time. There you go. Thank you, Arizona Street Medium, for the $5 super chat and the kind words. Matty Boy Sully's here and everybody else. Listen, we're going to get into the life of Trezell and Jacqueline West for at least the next 3 months. We know that May 23rd is going to be the tentative start of this trial. We know trials don't often kick off on the starting date because of different snafus that come up and different situations with attorneys and different kind of just stuff gets in the way. But if they stay in till June 23rd and it doesn't start, it doesn't matter. Like I said today in the preview, they're locked up and there's no bail for them. So we don't care if they hold them until July, but let's make sure that justice is served here. So I'm going to play a quick clip for you guys before we get going, and I'm going to share the screen. I am always challenged with the media. You know me, Ed. I stink at this stuff. Let's play this little setup. It's going to show you Jacqueline and Trezell. You're going to see RoeRoe and a couple of the boots on the ground Bakersfield folk at the hearing. Actually, this is the formal charges, the reading of the charges. So this is just a little bit old, but I want you guys to see this because it's good information.
Trezell and Jacqueline West, the adoptive parents of Orrin and Orson West, appeared in court today for the first time after being arrested for 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of child cruelty, and a false report of emergency. 23 ABC's Taylor Levesque was in court this morning and joins us now outside of the courthouse with more on the judge's ruling.
Today in court, Jacqueline and Trezell West pleaded not guilty today in court.
Did she call him Trevall?
But the judge says that they pose a risk but clear evidence says they do pose a risk to public safety and denied bail. Community and family members were in the courthouse today and say they are relieved that they are behind bars for the time being.
That's the first time I ever seen them.
Wearing gray jumpsuits and in handcuffs, those in the courtroom Thursday got a look at Trezell and Jacqueline West, who sat on opposite sides of the bench.
Just knowing that they're handcuffed and they're not leaving is a blessing.
Biological cousin to the missing boys, Rosanna Wills, agrees with the decision.
No bail allowed.
To keep them behind.
Okay, so I'm going to put that back just a little bit because this is what we're talking about here. Here's Trezell towards the upper left part of the screen as you look at the screen, and then Jacqueline is to the right with her attorney. They're shackled. She's got a travel belt on. He's got the travel belt and the handcuffs. So they're well secured in court and separated from each other. But this is their garb that they're going to be wearing for at least the next 3 months. So I wanted to stop it there so you guys can see the face of evil. We'll let this play.
To keep them behind bars.
I could finally get some sleep now, knowing that they're not out just, running. So, yeah.
So there's RoeRoe. She's been on with us. That is the biological cousin of one of the boys, Sincere and Classic. She represents both of them, and she is a family spokesman. She speaks continuously with the media and advocates for these boys. So she's just been a tremendous wealth of information, and she will be joining us later tonight. So there's Roe outside the courthouse.
It's a lot of relief on our family.
Judge Chad Louis also granted a request from the prosecution for sealing of the offense reports and probable cause declaration. In addition, the prosecution also requested a gag order, which was not granted Thursday.
They can plead what they want.
We know the gag order was granted. So this is a couple days before. So
no contest, no guilt, not guilty, but we know they're guilty.
Outside of the courthouse, community member Araceli Patino stood beside Wills and many others who followed the search over the last 14 months.
We need to stand in justice for this baby because this baby should had never gone through this. No parent should go through anything like this.
Wills says she is prepared for the trial, which is expected to begin May 23rd.
There's nothing that's going to stop me from being here. Nothing.
And is appreciative of the community for standing by their side during this process.
I just want to tell the community, thank you all for your support, your prayers, for keeping the boys' faces out there, for just the love, just, everything, investing the time and the finances for the billboard, just everything.
So there you have it. I wanted to play that to set up for outside the audio, outside of the United States. Some people aren't, getting this information, so it was important that we get that out. Ed, your thoughts on those? Seeing those two in court, no expression, no anything. I mean, we didn't expect to see it there, but we got a good look at the face of evil. Any thoughts on these two, Ed? I know you have a lot of words to say about it.
I would have liked to seen them without the surgical masks. To see exactly what their expressions were. I also took note of no eye contact going back and forth between the two pairs. They weren't looking at each other. The one lawyer looked a bit disheveled and unorganized and spending time on the phone while they're going through the hearing. That I was like a little taken back by.
Yeah. The whole thing is bizarre. And then we got to see the press conference yesterday. I know everybody reviewed that over and over again. And it was just, for me, it was one of the most disorganized and odd news conferences that I've seen from a criminal defense attorney. I know our friend Joe Murray, I tried to check in with him and he just gave me a laugh out loud back. He was busy because he's got a full docket. I sent him the link, so maybe he might come and join us. But before we start getting into a lot of this stuff, I want to introduce my two guests. These two are just tremendous folks with a lot of experience. Connie and Anthony, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. They're from Tier Talk, and they're both here. I don't know who the boss is, but Connie, do you want to settle the score right now?
Anthony's the boss.
I know.
That's not true.
Anthony,
Teamwork.
Thank you so much.
Men have never been in charge of anything, so let's just get that right.
It's true.
Anthony, I wanted to start with you quickly. Just give the audience just a little bit of your background in the correctional field, so this way they have an idea of who's speaking here, and just let our audience know what your credentials are.
Yeah, so I have about 20 years in the business. Started as an officer, moved my way up all the way to the admin level. I have worked in 4 facilities so far, a female facility. Now I'm actually working in a high-level maximum security facility. My expertise is in prisons, but having said that, we do share a lot in common with jails. And, always a pleasure to be on. I've been hosting the Tier Talk channel and interviewing experts now for, I think, since 2015. So I like to think I have some knowledge that I can share with this great community.
Oh, you certainly do, my friend. You've been on so many times with us. And Connie, I always screw up your credentials because they're long. I have 2 pages worth here, but when you say it, it sounds so much better and more beautiful than how I could say it. So give
Oh my
a
goodness.
little bit of your stuff.
Sure. So I started my correctional journey in 2000 on Rikers Island, and I've been doing corrections since then. I've worked in at least 6 of the different facilities on Rikers, and then when I came over to Connecticut Department of Corrections, we've got 17 here. I've worked in at least half of those, ending my correctional journey in facility in the female facility with 1,700 inmates. So it's been quite the, experience in general. But I think, when we have these conversations, we get to share all the stuff that we know with your audience. And so I'm looking forward to all their great questions because they usually have a lot of them.
Oh, yeah. The audience does have a lot. Ed, go
Absolutely.
ahead.
Yeah, so this is a teaching moment since Anthony brought it up. Let's tell the audience, Anthony, the difference between a jail and prison.
All right. So, yeah, that's a pretty good question. So basically, a jail is where you're going to kind of have someone that's pre-trial going through the system. We're trying to determine if they're going to get a sentence or not. A prison will be if they've been sentenced to a year or more. So the jail is kind of like an introduction into the system. If you're found guilty and you're sentenced to a year or more, then you're welcome to the state level, the prison level.
And in New York, in the jails, are they normally called detention center?
Yeah, they could be, right, Connie?
Yeah, so at the borough houses are usually the detention centers, but
Right.
on Rikers, each facility has its own name.
The Anna M. Cross Correctional Facility, OBCC. Well, I was to almost every facility, every place, including the parole shed. It was like the trailers at the end by the water there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to almost every facility on Rikers Island, and I've been to all the sub facilities, like the barge over in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And so I used to be in and out of those facilities on a daily basis when I was in the trip team. So we used to pick up people from all over the place and bring them. Anthony, I wanted to go to you quickly. We are talking about Trezell and Jacqueline West. They stand charged with second-degree murder of both of their adoptive children. They are in the Kern County Central Receiving, which houses around population, it says pre-trial, 1,304. So I'm thinking that they separate and segregate the pre-trials, 1,495 male, 188 female. What does it look like for them? They got collared, they got taken into central booking, processed either at the precinct, brought into this facility. I know I'm going to go to Connie next because we're going to talk about medical and stuff like that. What are these two? They're both arrested together. Did they arrive together? Let the audience know what some of that process is for these monsters, Jacqueline and Trezell.
Well, one thing is the separation is going to be automatic because they're male and female. As co-defendants, looks like they're represented by 2 different lawyers. So unless there's something agreement between both lawyers to have both of them in the same room while they're going through their cases, most likely, so there's no conflict with each other, they're probably not going to be seen in the same room together. I'm not saying that request can't happen, but they're co-defendants and also male and female, and they're represented separately, which is usually what's going to happen when you have co-defendants. You really shouldn't be housing them in the same area if it's a jail, or if it's if somehow they're accused while they're in prison. You don't want to house them in the same facilities, because you have to keep them separate, because you don't want them to have conflict with what they have going forward. For them, once they go in, it is a high-profile case. So effort on our end is going to be to protect them. And we've had discussions like this in the past, where we have to make sure that because of the high profile of their case, that they don't become a target. So most likely what I would think is, if Kern County, if they're too high profile for Kern County, there could be deals made with other jails or even a prison who may be better suited to do that, to hold on to the inmates until they go through trial, and then we figure out what we're going to do with them. But the key right now here is the high profile. We also have to make sure that they're not a harm to themselves. That's another thing. And Connie will touch on to that when they go through the medical and mental health screening.
Will the turtle suit come out? Will the turtle suit come out?
Well, it depends. I mean, and Connie will probably break into this a little bit more, but basically when they do the intake process, you're going to have to see, mind you, I mean, you have people that have lived a life. I mean, we even do this with people that have a lot of money. I don't know what their situation would be, but when you go into jail, it's a wake-up call. So for them, once they start getting hit with the pressures of the case, the pressure of the outside, the stigma of it all, yeah, we may have to do universal precaution. If we feel that even though they may not verbally say that they're going to hurt themselves, we may still cover ourselves, because the context of the situation may say, well, the likelihood of them doing it, regardless of what they say, creates a high possibility. And that's something that will be covered during intake and screening. But our number one focus right now is to make sure we keep them alive so they can stand trial.
Very good. Yeah. And, there's a lot of people in the chat that have a lot of anger towards them, and we get that. As long as you do it respectfully, if you put your comments in the chat and they're respectful, we're going to leave it there. Again, we all are not big fans of Trezell and Jacqueline West. I want to talk to Connie, because she did screening for quite a bit, medical, right? When these two come in, just walk the audience through what they go through and what that process is like, and then we'll talk about how things get when they are settled in.
Sure. So there's definitely a classification and screening process, right? So when they come in through intake, they're seen by medical. We're hoping to identify any risk that may exist, and that's whether they have communicable disease, they have any medical issues that need to be stabilized, whether they're intoxicated or they're high, whatever those medical issues are. What we also we go through the process of doing an intake assessment, which includes also any suicidality. We do their psychosocial, there's all the medical mental health process that we go through. And the intention is to make sure, one, we've identified any risk of decompensation of anything, but we also identify whether or not they're a harm to themselves or others. And if they are, we work along with custody to make sure they're housed appropriately. And then what we also try to do is, if there are any particular things that stand out, right? Maybe they have a long mental health history or something like that. What we do is try to collect any community collateral that we can get. So any health records, sometimes when they come from court, there may have been an initial assessment because there was a risk or there was, some concern identified. We try to get that information. But the intention is to make sure they're as stable as they can be while they're in our custody. And if there are any meds that we need to initiate, we usually make sure that we do that. We test them. We usually do a urine sample, right? So that, not everyone's going to say, yeah, I smoked crack before I came in, right? And so to avoid those, surprises, we try to see if there's anything in their system that we need to be preparing to treat.
Yeah, that's pretty extensive, and it's pretty costly, it sounds like. I know there's a lot of people in the chat that get really pissed off when we talk about how much it costs to house an inmate, not even talking about just here in the local jail, but when they get sentenced and sent upstate. Over in Kern County, they have 27 jails and prisons combined. They service a population of 878,000 people, and their population in their jails combined is 35,580 inmates. So it's a substantial system. There's 149 females and 3,409 males in the facility that they're in. So it's for me, it's just, these numbers are outrageous. I'm looking at them. They're all over the place. And there's so many facilities with so many different breakdowns of prisoners. So it's just mind blowing. Now, when you have these high profile folks come in there, you have to now ensure, as Anthony said, their safety. How are they? I mean, they're not able to see each other. They're not able to see each other together with attorneys. It's all separate. But where, again, there's a female housing and then there's the male housing side, right? So they're not anywhere. Like some people were thinking, oh, well, they're going to have powwows and get together. That doesn't happen, Anthony, right?
No, that's going to be very controlled. I'll tell you something. If there's ever a moment where you're in a jail and let's say there's a part where there's traffic going through and there could be a chance to interact, the males are usually told to face the wall. They're not allowed even to look at the female inmates. The only way that communication could occur, that's tough for us to get a hold of, is they could write to each other. I mean, that's a possibility. Right. Sometimes, depending on how the facility is laid out, there have been ways they can talk through the toilets. There's some jail in there that goes on, but for the most part, usually the women will probably be put at the other end of the facility. And if any chance there's some cross, the men will be told to immediately face the wall and let the women walk by. But there's definitely going to be no communication between the males and the females, especially when custody is around. That's a priority. That's a big thing.
Right. And the only reason I brought that up is because they're both being charged together with these crimes. And Ed brought it up in one of the shows. They need to have counsel, but it doesn't mean that they need to have counsel together, right? It could be separately.
Well, yeah, if I can, I'm sorry, Ron.
No, go ahead.
So it looks like they're represented by two different counsels. So as co-defendants, that means they're involved in the same case, but most likely what happens here is they both get independent counsel. Now, if by chance, for some reason, it's pushed to admin that they do want to have some type of meeting, but with both lawyers and both of them in the same room, if both lawyers agree, admin and stuff will scramble. They have to make that happen because we have to do what we can to meet the needs, to meet their legal needs. So, it's possible, but I think at this point it's highly unlikely because I think that there could be a conflict. Real quick, with co-defendants, you got to keep them separated because if you don't, they could bias each other's case.
Right. Again, there's so many inner working, there's so many different parts and moving parts to this whole thing. But, these are high profile inmates. They are standing accused of killing 2 children. There is conversation. We hear it all the time, even in the police business. Prisoner inmates do not like people who kill children. Is that a fact, Connie and Anthony? Is that a wives' tale or is that like the truth?
That's a fact. I think they're definitely at the bottom of the food chain, the criminal food chain. There's certain things, I don't know, like oftentimes we joke, but like they have their own moral code, right? And that is one of those. Between that and the elderly, it's a big one. And so I think as we talk about like their housing and how they'll be treated, there certainly is that that dynamic of the level of crime they committed. They probably will always be in danger. So housing them, we have to be very intentional about how we would keep them safe.
So yeah, and also, hey Ron, one other thing too. So me and Connie were talking about this on the way home from work. One of the things is sometimes there'll also be signs like, so there may be an inmate that may have to house, which I don't think is the case now, but when they go through the system and whatnot, eventually it could come to a point where they could get housed with somebody, which I would like to think would be screened at first until the case is kind of off the news. And then eventually you just try to see, through time, is this really needed. But with that said, a lot of inmates may not want to house with them because they know if they do, there could be pressure for them to have to do something foolish. So what they'll tend to do is they may tend to write to custody or admin saying, listen, I can't house with this individual because of their crime. If I do and I do something foolish, that's on the facility. And of course, we're going to write up the inmate for a threat and separate them. So I'll bet you another thing is there's going to be a lot of inmates that aren't going to want to house with them because of what could be expected from pressure.
Right. But what you guys were also saying is that, you know, this county jail is just a holding place, right? Most inmates aren't spending more than a year there. I read on the website, I think it is a year here at the Kern County Central Receiving. I'm going to double check it as we're talking, but you know, again, these are definitely folks with targets on their backs. There's no question about it. They're not well liked in the system. What do they do to make? Are they in protective custody?
Yeah, I would say yes, some level of separation, because you got to realize something. All eyes are on this case. So it's expected of Kern County to make sure that these inmates are produced to court when needed and with no marks. Or trust and believe, if any of those inmates get beat up, Kern County will be all over the news because of their failure to protect the inmates during this trial. I know there are some people here that, you know, hey, they deserve what's coming their way, guys, but we're held responsible for their livelihood and their well-being. So if we're not able to protect them, then we're not doing our job, which is to make sure we can produce them to the courts.
Right. Hey, Ed, what we used to say when we were on the street and we were cops, you know, we lock up these evil monsters. We lock up these bad guys and girls, and then we hand them off to corrections. And corrections has to now deal with them for the long term. We deal with them for a short period of time. They deal with them for a long period of time. It's not a great job to sometimes to have, you know.
And that's why they're called the boldest, right? Got to be bold to work in a prison, especially unarmed.
Because we don't get that all the time, guys.
Well, you know what? A lot of people out on the street, I'm talking about regular civilians, don't understand that to house heinous criminals who did the unthinkable, like these two, you know, they're innocent until proven guilty. I get that. But once they are finally sentenced, you guys get them here, Anthony down there, Connie, they have to deal with them face to face. And that's not a pleasant thing. Like I said, cops will grab them, we'll deal with them for a couple of hours, sometimes 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. It's a very short stay with us. And when we drop them off, the men and women of the correction industry are brave tenfold, because they're in there without weapons. They're in there with their own dukes. So it's like, you got to fend for yourself.
And remember, the jail only has to situate them for short term to go through the trial. Once they go to the prison setting, the prison setting has to prepare them for long term. So some of the measures that you see at the jail for short term will not be able to be employed for the prison on the long term, like separation and all that stuff, because obviously you'll have lawyers saying, well, what about their rights? And it's funny because in our effort to protect, we'll get lawyers saying that we're jeopardizing the inmates' rights if we can't meet the needs in that effort to protect.
Right. And to get back to what we were talking about, not only are they unarmed, but they're numerically outnumbered.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, you're in a pod where there's, you know, 100 or 50 or more prisoners, inmates, whatever you want to refer to them as, and, you know, 5 or 6 guards, right? I mean, you could say that maybe sometimes there's less, right, Ant?
Well, yeah. I mean, to piggyback on this, I mean, the biggest threat to anybody working in corrections is the ability for inmates to unite, you know, and now our interactions with the population are a lot more. We are active with the inmate population, but most of the time when we have issues with inmates, it's usually a certain amount. It's never all of them, you know, it's usually a certain amount, but that still could obviously pose a threat. That's why we tell officers, anytime you have to deal with a inmate that's even just being simply disrespectful, you want to isolate them from their peers and try to control the environment first. So you control your emotions, control the environment, and then make an effort to control the inmates. But the biggest fear is inmate unity, which is what we do every day to make sure it doesn't occur.
Doesn't occur, yeah.
Now, if I may, John, Yeah, you also in the prison system and in the jail system, you have an intel unit, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if you get intel that somebody's planning to do these people harm, what would you do?
All right, so we would get intel from many ways. I mean, you could get intel from the investigative division, intel from the outside, from the family, third person. Inmates could put it through a grievance system. Wherever the intel comes from, we act on it immediately. Even if the source is even questionable, it still doesn't matter. We act in universal precaution. So it would be forwarded over to the administration or like the warden or whatnot. And ultimately, all acts would you. If the inmate's already in separation, what we would do is we would probably ask for the investigative division to check the credibility of the source, listen to phone calls, also interview the inmates that have been who they're going after to see if they have any concerns or anybody that would have a threat against them. But then again, I mean, if they're already separated, there's really not much we could do. I mean, if worst comes to worst, I would rotate officers in and out. I wouldn't have it as a set bid. I would surprise officers every day so they wouldn't know who's working there until that day. But they're already separated. I mean, that's kind of like the final thing that we would do is if we found that even if the threat had no validity, but universal precaution because we can't determine it or not, they would be removed from population. But the investigative division would be responsible for looking at their resources, external stuff, checking the phone calls to see if there's anything that is valid with that threat. But it is something that has to be taken seriously because if it's not, now the problem is if they get wind that we get a threat, even if we don't believe it's valid and we don't act on it, the facility now is open to a huge lawsuit liability. So it's better we cross our T's and dot our I's. But one more thing. Funny thing is we also got to be careful, and Connie, I'm sure will know this, is that threats could also force us to maneuver an inmate into an area we don't want. Like it could be where they want the inmate to go. So sometimes you can have a threat where, let's say they don't want the inmate at Kern County. Maybe the inmate could be better reached at another county. Well, they can make this universal threat that the life in general is in jeopardy at Kern County. So what the investigators got to do is they got to determine the specifics of the threat. So if there's any action that has to be taken from their end or our end, it's specific and not general.
I know we both want nothing to happen to them that would preclude them from going to trial and facing the justice. So we want them, to stand trial and be fully protected while they're awaiting trial.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I think that's very well. I agree 100%. As much as people may not agree with that, they have to understand the punishment isn't taking your own life or being killed. The punishment is to write out the sentence and think about everything, what you did day in, day out. I mean, that's the real punishment.
Yeah.
Trust me.
You see the comment here on the screen. It's open season on those two. One of the things that I said, ladies and gents here on the panel, I said right away when it was the arrest warrant for Trezell and we didn't hear about Jacqueline, I was during a live stream said, I hope and pray that they are captured alive, that he does not do anything stupid, take his own life, et cetera, or fire at another officer or, get into this standoff with a shootout and things of that nature. So I wanted him to be brought in alive because you can't have justice without a person standing trial. And we saw that in the Gabby Petito case where Brian Laundrie went and took the coward's way out and killed himself. So, that's, it happens in these cases and that's not what we want to see or hear. I have Roe from Bakersfield, RoeRoe. That's the cousin of one of the boys. She's in the green room, but I don't see her camera active. So I'm going to add her in. Oh, she's a pro, man. Look at her. As soon as I said that, she's like, I'm here, Dutyron. Roe, thank you so much for joining. How are you? Your mic is muted, though. Okay, there you go. Hi, Roe.
I'm pretty good, and hi, everybody. Yeah, we're just kind of busy right now, so I just wanted to hop on here real quick.
Yes.
And, so I just want to say thank you real quick to everybody for your subscribers, the supporters, for the boys. I mean, you guys are amazing. Without you guys, I mean, I look at it like this. We all did this. Everyone that stayed consistent with it, you know, and it's a journey. It's a journey. We have a long road ahead of us, and you know, we're just ready. You know, the gag order, you know, was today, so I mean, I thank God for that though, because you know, like I told you know, them at the courthouse, I said whatever we have to do to make sure that it's a fair trial, because we don't want no more mistakes, you know, that were already made, and we just want them to get that fair trial, because you know, that's just what it is, and let them, you know, the courtroom, you know, get justice, you know. So you know, we came this far, we worked so hard, everyone around the world, you know. So it's just, let's let them do their job now. Let's let them do their job. We did the hard part, we kept the awareness out there, but thank you guys for keeping that billboard up, because I mean, you know, we always chant it, you know, where are the boys, and somebody knows something. So you know, somebody came forward, and thank God that they found it in their heart. You know, the real heroes, you know, is God first of all, and then you know the 50 witnesses, you know, that came forward and spoke up. You know, that's
Yeah,
who we really got to look at and thank them, because man, you know, we found that break in the case. So it's tough, you know, it's tough, and we just got to be here for the family, and continue to, you know, hold these candlelights for prayers, because we're still looking for the boys. And you know, I just ask everybody, please stop asking about the case. You guys follow the case on May 23rd. That's when the trial starts, because I mean, if they didn't give you guys, us, me too, they didn't give us, you know, what led them to the arrest, they're not going to give us nothing else, especially now that the gag order is out there. So just to save you guys the time and energy, because we're tired of repeating ourselves, especially now, you know, it's like, you know, now is not the time to keep going backwards. You know, we got to go forward. We still got to stay focused on the boys to bring them home, and so we could get closure. You know, we need closure. We can't rest until that. You know, it just took a little weight off our shoulders just to know that they're off the streets.
I
So,
agree, Ro, and we love and respect you. Everybody is putting beautiful messages in the chat. We're
oh,
doing
okay,
this. We're doing this live stream, Anthony and Connie and Ed and myself, to educate everybody on what is the process for Jacqueline and Trezell. I know they
okay.
are, you know, they're enemy number one to all of us. That you know that
You know, and it's not a bad, you know, I mean, it's because we're all heartbroken. You know, when we have enemies like that, it's because of what their actions and character, you know, who they are, and you know, so that, I mean, that's the, I mean, I agree. You know, they are the enemies, because to do that to some children, some babies at that, like that's evil. Like, you know, they're helpless. Like they don't know like, I don't know, innocent. You know, and it's sad. So they, to me, they deserve the harshest crime besides the death penalty, because we want them alive, you know. And I'm like you, Dutyron. I pray that they don't commit suicide or something, because we need, they hold the key to this, you know. They know what happened, and
Exactly.
I pray that if they watching this, if the West family watching this, if the Watkins family watching this, NAACP, if you guys are watching this, you know, I mean, just speak to your love, speak to him, speak to them, and tell them to just do the right thing. You know, you guys are already in jail. Like, what else can you lose? Like, you guys lost your kids, just like, you know, and it's sad, and I want to pray for their kids, because by the end of the day, you know, the kids don't, they don't know what's going on,
they're,
and
they're the
it's,
innocent victims.
yeah, and it's sad that they have to go through this because of the ignorance of their parents, you know. And it's just sad, you know, and I don't wish this on no family, nobody. And, you know, just let the truth continue to come out. And that's what I'm telling people, just stop questioning, let the truth continue to come out on both parts, the case itself and the lawsuit. Let them do their job, you know, let them, we don't even ask questions. That's why you know, we did what we did. We did our part.
Right.
Now it's time for us to sit back and let them be our voice, you know,
You
and that's where we're at right now.
I gotta tell you though, I mean, you speak so well on behalf of your family, and you've been out
Uh,
there vocalizing for the boys and advocating for them. You know, you were such a strong advocate. So I have to
thank you.
say, you know, I always tip my cap to people who deserve it, and you deserve it tenfold. And Ed and I have spoken.
Uh,
had many conversations. We spoke about this. We speak back and forth with each other. And when we talk about this case, what always comes to the forefront is that, it's the family when they speak and they keep the victims' names out there. And we're talking about sincere and classic. You have been night and day. I've spent many hours at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, my time, talking to you about the boys. And we've come such a long way, and we fought so hard and so strong. And
that's why I say we all did this. The subscribers, all, especially the support. Like, we all kept it out there in our way. You with the billboards, y'all with the billboards and your platform, and you bringing on, retired professionals that's been in this field. Like, and honestly, I used to hate talking. I used to hate getting up in front of class and doing a presentation. I used to have this anxiety type. But when it came down to this, somebody had to do it. You know what I mean? So sometimes we have to take a leap in faith and just, trust in God and understand that, just trust in him and he'll guide you. And that's what he did. He gave me the strength to be able to do this, for my family, because they going through it. And I said this in the beginning that they were going through it. Now that the truth is revealed, they're going through it even more. So, we went through a lot during this case, the backlash, the whys, why did they remove him? We have the same question, but that question will be answered later, So, it's just a lot, Dutyron, and I like right now I'm headed on the freeway right now, so I have to take the time out to let you guys know we really, on behalf of my family, we really appreciate you guys for helping us keep the awareness out there, because we couldn't have done it without y'all, and really we couldn't have done it without y'all. EchoSearch, thank you so much for just coming out here, your presence. I knew y'all presence would kind of, shake things up a little. So even if we didn't find the boys, it was just about your presence. I know sometimes we walk away empty-handed, which gave us hope, but now we know the truth, and now we, got to move forward and get justice and continue to, try to find them. So I pray one day that, soon, because we don't have time, but that the detective will let EchoSearch come back out here, because we still need closure, and we're gonna continue to do our part. We're gonna go search a few places that you were tipped off to us. We're not gonna touch nothing. We're not gonna nothing. We're just gonna scope the area out and things like that. And if EchoSearch came back out here, we'll let them know that these are the areas that we would love for them to search.
Yeah, well, let me tell you this. If you want some tips from Dave and Twyla, I will get them in touch with you. I will give your number to them and their number to you, and you can get maybe some tips on them on how to safely search.
Yes.
And some protocol and such. And I know Ed loves that, because he's about teaching. So Ed Wallace right here, he loves that conversation.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, RoeRoe, I just hope and pray that there's a come to Jesus moment with these two, when they realize there's, the game is over, and they need to, confess their sins, seek forgiveness, and give up the location, so we can get these poor boys back.
Amen to that. Thank you, Ed. Thank you.
Amen, brother Ed. Amen. Connie, you have any words or anything for RoeRoe? I know you've seen her on here with us quite a bit. This is a strong woman.
Hi, Connie.
This is a strong woman moment right here. You two are powerful women. So anything for RoeRoe, Connie?
I mean, what I would say is that, what has happened is just absolutely awful. And I think that as you having the strength to be able to stand up and represent your family, you have to be able to sort of celebrate that in yourself, right? That even though you're going through the struggle and you're feeling the same hurt, that you're still able to be that person to speak up and advocate on behalf of your family. And I don't want that to go unnoticed, that you're hurting as well. And so to be able to keep, a sound mind, sound judgment, and still move forward, like, I commend you for that. And just know that you've got people out there praying for you and praying that your family has some sort of peace once these two go through this process.
Thank you all. Thank you for that. That gave me a little comfort to know that, because I know all the hard work we put in is not a waste of time. I'll do it all over again. You know, I wouldn't question it. I'll just get out there and do it. And you know, like I said, I mean, I gotta like I mean, I learned a lot just with all these prayer warriors and stuff, leaving, you know, giving God all the glory. So I'm gonna just give all glory to God because, you know, like I said, I pray for strength every day to get through these, you know, these trials and tribulations, and that's what He's done. And you know, prayer is powerful. So you guys continue to pray and continue to pray for the boys that we find them, so we can you know, get closure and give them a proper burial. So you know, lay them to rest. So it hurts, but man, I mean, we can't go back and change nothing, and that's the sad part about it. So you know, my advice to everyone, you know, just you know, think before you act. You know, your actions could, even if it's an accident, you know, sometimes you have to fight a little harder than others to you know, be heard or to be understood. But it's okay. Just never stop. You know, don't give up. Fight for your kids. You know, do what you have to do. You know, because you don't want them. You don't want this to happen to y'all. You know, and it's just a sad moment. So just you know, just love your loved ones, man. Life is short. Tomorrow's not promised.
Words
That's
well
right.
said. Words well said. And I want to just add one more thing, Roe, and don't get mad at me for this, but I got to add this. You lost your mom, Phyllis, and you know, just a short time after your mom passed on, we have these two in custody. I have to say, I feel like she worked her magic up there with those boys. So, you know, my prayers and condolences go straight out to Roe. I know that she just looks like she just froze up, but you know, maybe that's her mom telling me to shut up. But I wanted to send my condolences on behalf of the whole community. Again, circle back to you, Roe, and I know she's still there because it's frozen, but she could probably still hear us. Nothing But Love sent in a $200 super chat, and she says, Dutyron, send this to Roe. So I have a $200 donation that came in straight from Denise, our good friend. She's a channel member. She's a Patreon supporter. She is a strong supporter of all victims and their families. She sent in a tremendous donation to EquiSearch, and she sends $200, and there's the message. Please send this to RoeRoe and the family. May they find the answers they're looking for. Amen to that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, these are the great people that are out there, Ed.
Yeah.
You know, you and I got together just a short time ago, and we're getting to see how great this community is. And Connie, you say it all the time to me. Anthony, the same thing for you. We cross-pollinate our subscribers. We send them over to Tier Talk. We, you know, hope that we get maybe, you know, a handful of your subscribers to come on over here, and it's like a two-way street of, you know, passing people around for good information, because you guys, you have the goods. You get you know what goes on behind those walls in the facilities. You have great information. And before we wrap this up, because we're going to get ready to wrap, Ed's got to go. Oh,
what was that?
Is that your broker texting in, Ed? Was that you or was that Anthony? Probably Anthony. I would have to. If I had to bet my pension, it would be Anthony. I have a cheat sheet, and there's a lot of questions, and they came into dutyron.com. So I'm going to rapid fire them. We'll let either. I'm going to have to direct this because Anthony, you know, he's jabberjaws like me. So Connie will never get to answer any of these. All right. What if an inmate? Let's just say this is for you, Connie. What? Anthony, you go to the corner. Connie, what if, let's just say for argument's sake, what if an inmate is 7 months pregnant or pregnant of any kind? What is the handling? Is it different? Let's just say for argument's sake, you have an inmate that comes in pregnant. Let's talk about it.
All right. So we got an inmate who comes in pregnant. The first thing we do is set her up with the OBGYN. We usually have one on site. That is one of the specialties that is on site. And if they're not on site, we send them out to a specialist. So really, it's really to try to find out what is the gestational age of the baby, right? Once we know that, we initiate care. So if they were getting a certain level of care in the community, we typically match that care in the facility. And if we're unable to do that in the facility, we outsource that care to make sure that that baby comes in as healthy as possible. We initiate not only just care of baby, but mom too. So prenatal vitamins. We make sure whatever it is she needs, she has it. There are sometimes special diets that we have specifically, and every now and again, for those individuals who come in and they need additional nutrition, right? What we try to do is connect with our food services folks to make sure that they get special diet food for them to be healthy during the time that they're inside. So there's nothing that isn't done for an inmate who comes in pregnant that wouldn't be done in the community.
It's amazing. So they are every need is prison and jail is not an inhumane place. It's not a 5-star hotel, right? But it's not an inhumane place. That's me. I don't know what's going on with my computer, but anyways, so people think that well, if somebody's in prison or they're not gonna, if their tooth is, we talked about this last time, if their tooth needs to be extracted, it's going to get extracted. It's not going to get extracted on Park Avenue, but it's going to happen. So thank you for answering that. And for those of you who are out there that listen to a lot of the rumors on Facebook, there's talk that Jacqueline is pregnant. That is not confirmed, and we have no confirmation of it. In fact, when I looked at her when she was presented in court, I looked over her body, and if she is in fact 7 months pregnant, she's hiding it pretty well. So I did look at her and I gave the once over, but we have no confirmation on that. So please don't get into that. I just saw a lot of rumors circulating in some of these groups. Here's the second one. And well, we covered this already, Anthony, so you're not even going to get to answer this. In a high profile case, what's the protocol? Will Trezell and Jacqueline have contact with each other? We covered this already. That is a big no. There's going to be no conjugal visits, right? None of intermingling with the inmates. How do rights and accommodations take place in prison? Can they have outside visitors? Oh, that's a good one. So people want to know, can their parents come up and see them in jail?
It may be, it may be tough because right now the concerns are this case. So, it's just a matter of if who's coming in. Are they going to be a conflict? In some cases, believe it or not, having the family come in, they may say something to the family. They may say something to the mental health professional that's talking to them. But I would say at this point, because of the high profile, not knowing if there's a threat to their lives, a family member could come in and, take them out. You don't know at this point. So I would say it would be very limited or severely filtered. And if they do it, it could be set up as a no contact visit where they're seen through the windows and they have no physical contact. But I think at this point, it could be highly unlikely because of the profile of the case and the, I don't know, Connie, what would you, say? You would agree?
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that would be allowed. And if it is, I would imagine that it would be in a no contact visit.
Right. Ed, do you have any questions for them? Because I know you got to run soon, right?
No, great information, guys. I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight and answering the questions and educating our true crime audience. It was great for me. I learned a lot. Every day is a learning day, but I got to say just before I go, but when you were talking about RoeRoe and Connie and being powerful women,
international women,
that was, I'm going to age myself here a bit when I started thinking about Helen Reddy singing, "I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar."
And it is International Women's Day, right? Today. So
yes.
I had to get reminded by some of the ladies in the chat. They're like, Dutyron, it's International Women's Day. I didn't even, it wasn't even on my mind. I saw it on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. Anthony, I got one more question before you got, Ed, do you got to run? I know we're getting.
I got to run.
Okay, brother. Good to see you. Thank you.
Ed.
Ed Wallace.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Take
Ed.
care.
All right. What did I do? Oh my. All right. I don't know what the hell I just did. All right. There we go. Woo. Anyways, I tried to get rid of Ed and I freaking X'd us all out. One quick question for you, Ant. what's a typical day like in prison for them once they're sentenced? Take it separately. We'll start with Trezell and then work the way to Jacqueline. And if you have anything to add to it, Connie, I'll let you guys go. It's your show. I'm leaving. You two talk.
I don't think there'd be much of a difference. I think it's good. Both their days are going to be structured. I know anything related to the courts will be handled as a priority. So probably at the beginning of the day, if they're still going back and forth to the courts, they would probably have an early wake up, get themselves situated, get what they need, get their escorts ready, probably get them out as early as possible, get them in the courts before hopefully the press comes, maybe a separate entrance there. We got to make sure they're fed. So most likely if they're going to the courts, they'll be given bagged breakfasts, maybe bagged lunch, depending on what the court does. Eventually when the court day ends, I'm assuming they're spending most of their time at court. When the court date ends, they'll go back to the facility. Most likely, to be honest with you, if they have to maybe make an appointment with the law library or something like that, I'm sure that's going to take a priority because of the high profile of their case. You know, as I said, they're probably not interacting with many individuals. So I'm assuming their day is just pretty much going back and forth to court, making sure they're fed and that we take care of all their legal needs. I mean, I can't really think of much, you know, outside of that. Would you think so, Connie?
Yeah, I mean, so if they're not, I think because the other side of that is that if they're not going to court every day, right, you know, there is a normal operational happenings, right, which they may not necessarily be as involved in because they wouldn't have free movement like other inmates. But if there's any sort of programming, if there are any medical appointments, mental health appointments, like all of that stuff will still happen. It would just happen within a structured movement space. So if some folks are wondering, like, you know, when they go back to facility, can they kind of just move about the way an inmate who is not under this intense scrutiny? No, they wouldn't be able to do that. But if there are services that they would want to have access to, or if there are religious services that they'd like to have access to, that there are accommodations that we try to make so that they're not completely isolated.
I will tell you one thing, they're definitely getting stripped every day, back and forth to the court, getting searched every day. Yeah. And like Connie, for a regular day, 100%, we still have to make sure they get their rights. So even if they're separated from the separate population, from the rest of the population, we're going to have to make sure that there's a chaplaincy there to give them their, anytime you separate an inmate from the population, you still have to be able to accommodate their rights, you know? So it tends to be not something that we don't really want to always separate inmates, but unfortunately, if we have to make sure that they're going to get the services. If there's programs in jail, usually there's more of activities to kind of keep them busy, but we can't deprive them of what the regular GP is getting, all because they're in special housing.
Right. And I just showed on the screen when you two were speaking, this is the tour bus for the Kern County Sheriff. This looks like a nice bus. I mean, guess what? Inside, it's really not nice. So this is their transport vehicle, or one of the probably many that they have. And that's what takes them back and forth. And it's not necessarily used all the time because they have probably smaller vans and smaller vehicles that they probably use to transport. It's just one of many right there. But what I was trying to get at is that when they are sentenced, say to 2 life sentences, and they go up, not, you know, you actually answered the next question I was going to ask you guys. But like once they are finished and the deal is sealed with court, sentence imposed, the judge says take charge, they get sentenced to 2 life sentences, they go up into a state prison because we know that they're not going to stay here in a local. What's the day-to-day like when you get that situation? Now
it's now this, we're talking long term. So
now
the state is now going to put more focus on their needs. I mean, technically, we don't want to always keep them in special housing. So we're going to do what we can to, even though they're high profile, I mean, could be a maximum security inmate, obviously. So they may have limited interactions anyway, but they would probably be considered a general population inmate. They would be given, same thing. They would get up, have daily jobs, you know, could be tier sand, something like that. Cause you have to afford them the same opportunities that you're going to afford other inmates. Now we would actually ask them, what I would do first, honestly, is because it's a high profile case. One of the things is I don't want to, I want to see if there really is a need to house them separately, or I'm sorry, to house them separately from the rest of the population. So one of the things is that it's still ongoing in the news and it hasn't died out. There's really not going to be much of a choice. I'm going to have to do that. We're going to make the request, sign it off. And even if the inmate doesn't want it, if they don't want it, we could put them in involuntary PC, and then we'll just have to check on it sporadically to, you know, kind of update to make sure if it's still needed or not.
I think these two would be considered. They're going to be high targets because, again, this is not going away. It's not going away from the news. It's still going to be all over the place. As a matter of fact, when they get sentenced and they get sent up, it's going to be, you know, a ton of media attention. I mean, you're talking. It's going to go crazy. So at least for the first beginning months, it's going to be going crazy, and then as anything else, the coverage will die off. But
yeah, but then the funny thing about that though. So here's a unique thing. Even when the coverage dies off, like we will always interview an inmate to see if they want PC first, and then we'll make the determination whether they want it or not. What's best for them. Having said that, it may die off, but then it could start up again. You know, so we have to make sure that even if it starts up again, I mean, is there really a valid threat? So for someone like this, because of the high profile of the crime, I could see them being put in like some level of PC, whether it's congregate or non-congregate. But I can actually see them probably riding out their career in some form of protective custody unit with inmates that have similar crimes. So again, I mean, I could see that only because they're always going to be high profile.
Right.
You know, there could be 10-year anniversary of the case, a 15-year anniversary.
So Anthony, Anthony, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to stick with this thought. So you're telling us, the audience, and myself and everybody here that's listening, that there is in prisons, there is a area where they'll put all of the child murderers. Is that what you're saying?
Well, more of high profile cases. So here's a lot of facilities may have what they call, there's two types of PC. You know, you're going to have congregate and non-congregate. You know, technically it's kind of like a trial period. You start off in non-congregate because, again, we got to figure out if there's any threat or whatnot. Then eventually you want to work yourself down to congregate, and then ultimately can the person be introduced into general population. But there are some inmates that do have high profile crimes. But we don't always want to keep them in non-congregate settings because it's not healthy, you know, mentally. And I know, guys, that's our job. We have to, you know, make sure that we do what's best for the inmates that are in our custody. So initially, they would go into a non-congregate setting, but there would be an attempt to probably make them go to a congregate. But I will tell you this, for this case here or any high-profile case, if the inmate's not pushing to go to GP or not pushing to go into a congregate setting, we may not sweat it because, again, they're not pushing it. They don't want it. There's no potential lawsuit here. We're good. But if the inmate's in involuntary PC where they don't want to be in PC, then it's like, okay, we can only hold them here for so long because they don't want it. So then the lawyers start to come and say, well, because of their crime, you know, you're separating them and all this other stuff. So we would push for a congregate. And if it works out well and, you know, no issues, you could try to make a GP setting. But I think the most you would do with these inmates is I would keep them on PC because of high profile. The highest I would go is congregate because, again, you never know. 10-year anniversary, we're back in the mix again. 15. I mean, whenever the media picks up something and runs with it on a high profile case, we have to be alert of that. Especially like, I mean, there have been times where you have a case that's quiet. And then all of a sudden, the news decides to run a year in, and all of a sudden, it's, you know, it's all up in atoms again. So it's like, you know what? I rather just PC. Yeah, PC is protective custody, and what I would do with them is I would wind up trying to see if they wanted to go to congregate, and then kind of leave it at that. I don't think they're GP. I don't think they're GP material because this is very high profile.
Right. Absolutely. And you know, I guess it could be argued, and you know, anybody can have an opinion on this, but you know, percentage wise, you know, these two, especially in the female side, and Connie, you could talk about the female side a little bit more, but I know you've worked both sides too, Aunt. But some of the females are even more vicious when it comes to these crimes against children. At least I used to see it in the Rikers with Rose M. They're violent. These women are violent, and for some reason they do it in a way that they can just be like lackadaisical about it, and just I've seen girls slash from like Cuban neckties really quick in prison, and getting a shank and getting contraband in there, it unfortunately happens. It happens, and they have not only the contraband, but they get the weapons. I want to just show a figure, and this is confusing to me. Maybe you guys can give some clarity to this. So I just Googled real quick. I'm going to put it full screen. So it says inmate population in Kern County. So let me just get this so everybody could see it. Can you see these numbers, Ant? So it says how many prisons are in Kern County? It says there's 27 prisons in Kern County, serving a population of 878,000 people in an area of 8,130 square miles. Kern County jails and prisons, total population 3,558, female population 149, and 3,409 male prisoners. But then when you look at some of the, hold on a second. There was another figure that just made it not match up. Anyways, these numbers just are pretty high. I mean, for Kern County, and it's a big county, but to have 27 prisons and jails, I mean, isn't that a high amount of number of? Well,
they could be talking, like we said, like independent detention centers. I mean, there could be a lot of things that are mixed in with that. Technically, usually a county jail only has one county jail. And that's why before, I think I don't know if by mistake or something, I think you had said 35,000.
Yeah. I'm looking for that. Oh, here it is. So let me put this on the screen. This is what got me confused, because I had both these numbers, and then I'm going to make this large so everybody could see it. So this is where I got the number from. It says there's 27 jails and prisons in Kern County serving this big population. And then it says there is one jail and a prison for 32,000. So I came up with the numbers on these searches, and I guess, this is what's bad about Google and stuff. So this is through the countyoffice.org. And when you look at jails and prisons and you look at population, you get various different numbers. And I wrote them down on my pad here. It said population 35,580, and then females back to what this was showing. But then it broke it down in each one of those 27 jails. You can't tell me there's only 3,500.
Well, they did it per capita. So basically, yeah, I mean, so I will be honest with you. So I saw the number, let's say, I know we had 35, which I was like, that's very high. But when we looked at it now, the 3,500 to one with the 149 female, be honest with you guys, that number, I know it seems even, it may seem high. I mean, don't forget, we're going through criminal justice reform, but the female number to me is actually very low.
Low, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that is a very low.
That was something I was going to raise, because we know that females have been exponentially being found guilty, being sentenced. Just the female inmate population continues to grow. So that seems like a really small number. I think, though, the numbers that they're given is like, so California is considered one of the big three, right? And so because California is such a huge state, and they have such a significant inmate population, the number could actually be accurate.
Yeah, I think I agree.
The size of California, and knowing that they do have a pretty significant population.
And to be honest with you, they've been going through some really, I mean, that's left state, so they've been going through some really good criminal justice reform. So I'm sure the number at one point could have been a lot higher. I mean, recently the prison system actually started closing down their stigmas, all that stuff, and they started pushing a good amount of the population out. And I will guarantee you a big portion of that would be the women too. Single mothers, they want to get them out in the streets. They want to reconnect them back with their families or their children. So, I think the number is could be accurate. Yeah.
It was just confusing because there was one, and I can't find it, of course. Now there was one. I wrote these numbers down, and when it showed total prison population of 35,000, I said, "Wait a minute, that's a lot. How could that be?" And then it broke it down by all the different facilities. I didn't write them all down on a piece of paper, but I did save it. But now when I go to look at it, it's gone. So again, I guess it doesn't matter with this. We're talking about Trezell and Jacqueline West here. They're going to be in a significant facility where there's a lot of inmates. When they finally go and get their sentencing upon conviction, upon a guilty verdict, then they'll be going to separate facilities. They probably won't be at the same, but then there's a chance that it could be a facility that will have a male and a female side.
Well, at the prison level, it would be, there's always, a designated female facility and a designated male facility, or multiple male facilities.
That's why I got you guys here. You guys are the pros, So again, I want to encourage everybody as we wrap up to go over to Tier Talk. Anthony has his YouTube channel. He has his lovely co-host here. I think she runs the show more than Anthony does. If you go over to Tier Talk, you let me know by leaving me some comments down below. Who's the boss of Tier Talk? And there's a couple of people in the chat, and there's a couple of people in the comments, and you missed it, Anthony. They're asking you, what facility are you in right now? They want to know, what is this? Are you in the basement of a correctional facility right now?
No, okay, guys. So I'm all right. So I'm in my basement. I have 2 young kids upstairs. I haven't fixed up the basement yet. We just moved into this house a few months ago. So this is the dungeon. This is where I'm at, guys. It's the only way my wife allows me to talk to Dutyron and Connie.
They threw him in the hole. He's in the hole in the basement.
Oh, good. Hey, good reference there.
Yeah.
Why did I think of that?
Anthony is in the hole.
I'm solitary.
Yeah, they put him down.
You're an ad seg.
Yo, I should have thought of that. Why did the street cop come up with the jail joke?
Connie, you are the boss. Connie, you're the boss. You're the boss,
God.
Do you have anything you're working on, Connie, you want to talk about or anything?
Oh my goodness. So there's always stuff going on. Wow, I don't even know where to start. So so I have the Civilian Corrections Academy. It continues to grow. We're kind of getting it out and about everywhere and in every platform that we can get it in. I've recently been nominated as Business Person of the Year for 2022. So that's just an exciting thing. Woo-hoo. And then the book, The Cage Was Her Cocoon, is kind of taking on its own life right now. So we've kind of got that happening. And so this is like fun stuff. It's keeping me busy. It's keeping me engaged. And I mean, honestly, the one thing that I'm doing that I really enjoy is being able to coach and mentor other non-uniform staff that work in corrections. And like, as much as I can pour into them and know that they'll be safe, like that's all I could ever ask for.
Oh, that is beautiful. Connie, it's always an honor and a pleasure to have you and Anthony come on Crime Time with Dutyron. Will you guys promise that you'll come back again? Even though Anthony's down in the hole, he's down in the hole. We got him in solitary. He's got cinder block walls. He's locked down, folks. Yeah, we'd love to have you guys come back. You've provided us with such a great amount of information. And as these cases and different ones that we come through and we come across, there's always a chance to have a conversation about what goes on behind the walls, as you guys say. It's important that people know what goes on, and you guys have a tough job, and I have a lot of respect for all my male and female correction officers out there, and the civilian staff as well. Everybody that works in a facility are brave people, and I tip my cap to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, as I like to end all of these, God bless the world, God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially all victims of crime and their families. Sincere and classic. We send prayers to their family and strength and positive vibes to the people of Bakersfield, California, and all victims of crime across the globe. So on behalf of Crime Time with Dutyron, Connie, the boss, and Anthony down in the hole, host of Tier Talk, we'll see you on the next one. Go over and subscribe to that channel. I want everybody to leave here and immediately go over and subscribe to me.
Thanks.
Peace and love from Dutyron.